This is the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast, where we interview conservationists, hunters, anglers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the greatest stories, information, and advice from the best in the world. One of the things that's pretty funny is that we both have had podcasts for over 3 years. We both live in the greater Toledo area, and we just now found out about each other, which is insane to me because we're both like doing our thing online, and you would think like some algorithm robot somewhere would have connected us at some point, but it has not. So it's cool. It's cool to finally talk on the internet in person, I guess. We still live like 40 minutes apart, probably. Yeah,
because you're in Swan, right?
Yeah, I'm way out here in the sticks, and you're in over towards Oregon area.
I'm in Oregon. Yeah, so I grew up in Monclova, like right by the airport. So not far from where you're at. Yeah.
No.
But it's crazy.
the crazy thing is growing up around here, I took all this stuff that we have for granted. Like, I didn't really get into the hunting and fishing stuff. I mean, I've been fishing since I was a kid, but like I didn't get into the hunting stuff until I was older because it just wasn't something I was introduced to, and it wasn't something that, you know, people really talked about where I was living and growing up. It was just like not a thing everybody did. And now that I'm just in love with hunting and fishing, it's all I care about, all I do. There's so much to do around here, especially with waterfowl hunting, which is kind of your area of expertise. You know, that's like your big thing. So what got you into waterfowl hunting? I know this area is amazing for waterfowl, and I just got into it last year, and it's overwhelming what you have to learn.
So what happened with me, it's the same thing. Like, I mean, I grew up golfing, playing paintball, playing baseball, basketball, like any sports, which is like where all of the hobby thing has kind of come into full circle. But so when I was in college, my roommate at Toledo, his dad was a decoy carver. So like he grew up waterfowl hunting, and like they were kind of like not like super indulged in it. Like his dad was still a dad, you know what I mean? Like he had his two kids basically by himself that he was raising, and like so they got out when they could, and like they live on a 10-acre marsh and stuff at their house, and like so they would hunt. But like when we got to college, my buddy was like, you know, I really kind of want to get back into it, you know, like we're partying and like powerlifting and stuff. Like I did competitive powerlifting in college, and so we're just kind of like trying to find a way to mix it up. Like in the winter, everything just kind of sucks. So his dad had he carved some decoys for Hardcore Decoy, the Hardcore brand. And so they sent him like 20 dozen. And so like a FedEx truck pulled up and just dumped all these boxes in his shop. And so like he goes, hey, if you guys want some decoys, like just come grab them. So we grabbed like 3 dozen or something. For a while, we just had them hanging up on the walls at the house. We were like, oh, this is cool. Like when people come over for parties, like, there's just ducks on the wall. But like then after like a few months, we were like, that's duck season. Like we should try this. And so like he had been hunting like where his dad hunted, but like with his dad. So he's kind of wanted to branch out on his own. So I'm like, dude, I'm down. Like I deer hunted for like a year before that. Like you said, I fished like my childhood, but then take advantage of like everything that we have out here. So then once I started learning, like there's a lot of history in this area, and there's a lot of opportunity for waterfowl. Like we have one of the biggest lakes in the country, if not the world, like right in our backyard. So, we started hunting marshes. For a while, like we were using old like trash cans as stools in the marsh, and like so then we just kind of like evolved from there. You know, like the more you learn, like I'm sure that you're figuring out, like at the time, like there wasn't a lot of like stuff on YouTube. There wasn't like, I mean, this is 2012, and so it's like, you know, it's just not like mainstream. And then like after, I think it was like the year after we started hunting, like Duck Dynasty was really blowing up. And so then like everything was duck hunting. And then like, so like I remember the first year that we hunted in the Mallard Club, there was not a single person there. We thought we were there at the wrong day. It was opening day. There was a single person there. And we were like, what is going on? And then like the next 2 years, it's like, you have to sleep there. And so like it kind of blew up like at the same time that I was coming through it. But I had a lot of really good mentors. Like I had my buddy and his dad, like they helped, like while we were in college, like we all hunted together. When I graduated, I moved out here and I actually moved into a house like that was inside the Mallard Club. So like my yard touched public hunting land, which was
awesome.
like phenomenal. Yeah. And so then I started just meeting people in the area, and they kind of like showed me the ropes on the lake and stuff like that. And they're basically like bypassed the whole, like, you know, I hunted the marshes, but then like once they showed me the lake, it was like, I'm done with the marshes. Like I'm a big water guy, and like I jumped right into it head first. So like, I mean, that was in 2016. So I'm 7 or 8 years into just like basically strictly big water hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I got the tender boat, layout boats. I got, you know, tens of dozens of diver decoys, long line, singles, the whole nine. And it's like, I still puddle duck hunt like when I feel like it, but I focus on big water. That's my like bread and butter.
Well, that's a good thing to focus on because we got a lot of big water around here. And, you know, the lake's not super close to me, especially, you know, the more prime fishing and hunting areas. It's still a bit of a drive. But when I do have the opportunity to go out there, it's just like not on the level of fishing a lot of these inland lakes. It like doesn't even compare. Yeah. I'll go out, like I kayaked into Lake Erie and caught the biggest smallmouth of my life, like in 20 minutes, where it's like you spend on the river or something, you spend a ton of time trying to find them, and they're not nearly as big that I've found the ones that I've caught. So it's just like everything's bigger on the lake, and I can imagine the duck hunting is way more intense out there, and it's coming to that season real quick. I mean, we're here in August, and like in a blink of an eye, it's going to be bitter cold, and we're going to be all out there in waders trying not to die in the freezing water. So what? I've actually never done any big water duck hunting. What's that experience like when you get into that? Because that's to be a little intimidating at first, because like you said, you need a boat, you need floating layout blinds, you need really long. I'm assuming the anchors that get to keep the ducks out there extremely long. Like that's a big process. So how do you go from like hunting in a marsh, which is fairly basic and simple to figure out, to going out on big water?
You know, I like to tell people, if you have a boat, you can do it. But at the same time, like you have to learn the lake, because it's the same thing as fishing. Like if you wanted to walleye fish, like you could go into the river and you could fish with a 12-foot boat. But if you try to walleye fish out on the lake, on the main lake, a 12-foot boat's going to capsize in another boat's wake. So like you have to be very conscious of the boat that you're taking. Like I don't take flat bottom boats out. I don't take anything less than 14 foot. I mean, when I first was like kind of wrapping my head around everything and doing it all on my own, I had a 14-foot, but it was a very deep 14-foot Starcraft. And I only went out when the NOAA report said that it was less than 2 foot. And generally it was like I would go out on days that were really calm, and then like the duck hunting wasn't that great. So like, I mean, I've had days out in 3-footers that are just absolute killers, but then it's like you're getting swamped by, you know, waves coming up over the back of the layout boat, and like it's not for the faint of heart. And a lot of people really take like the safety of the lake for granted, because I mean, it's where we're at on the Western Basin. It's so shallow that a little gust can pick up real quick. And so like, we don't get the time. Like there's times where I've been pulling in the last long line, and I'm like, if it doesn't come in right, I'm just leaving it and I'll get it tomorrow. Like it's time to go. Like you got to get out of there. So the difference, I think, is that diver ducks are just different. Like puddle ducks come in, they're nice and pretty, and they flap right in your face. And like, I'm not saying that it's super easy by any means, but diver ducks are fast. They're quick. But when they commit so hard. Like there's no denying that they're like, if a bluebill has its feet down, it will land on the bluebill decoys. Like it's no question. And you can, you can stand up, walk to the edge while they're still flying in and shoot. Like it's,
wow.
There's really nothing to compare it to. Like the closest that you could really get to comparing it would be like geese landing like 10 yards in a field at your feet. like coming in that close, and like the anticipation of a goose flying in, which I still think is just so awesome. But when you're in a layout boat, you're out in the middle of the lake. You're laying, so like the layout boat sits about like 4 to 6 inches underwater. So you're under the surface of the water. And when you sit up, you're looking these birds in the eye. So like they've come in, and I've shot them, and they've skipped and hit the boat. Like they've been that close. But they come in so fast that like by the time you react, you're like, well, this one's dumping in. And then by the time you sit up, like you saw it at 25 yards and now it's at like 8. And so like, it's just a way different experience than like most people are used to. And it's a rush. Like when you get out there and like you're away from everyone, like that's the really nice thing about it is like on the lake, it's pretty well scattered. Like there's so much lakeshore that you're not sitting right on top of each other like you would be in a marsh. Like nobody comes and sets a boat 150 yards from you. They're like 600 yards from you.
Is it like kind of like walleye fishing when you're out there and everybody just kind of stays in their own kind of area and they're doing drifts over like humps, but everybody's trying to stay away so they're not in each other's way? Right. That's been my experience anyway. I know it gets crazy on the river walleye fishing. I try to avoid that.
That stuff's insane. Yeah.
That's like, I would say those are probably the two equivalent to fishing that you could get with probably hunting in the marshes versus hunting on the lake. Then is like, it's just more out in space and people are like, I want to be out here. I have a boat. I can go anywhere I want. So that's awesome. I got the full experience last year, duck hunting and goose hunting for the first time, like sitting in fields. Okay. And then also sitting in the marshes, which I'm kind of lucky. My buddy, He got a couple lotteries, so my first experiences weren't like shoulder to shoulder duck hunting, but it's tough, man. Like if you've been deer hunting, deer hunting is frustrating, and you spend a lot of time where you cannot see anything potentially, and you're just bored. But duck hunting is frustrating because you gotta like be on. And if like you can call and they'll fly away still, you can watch them come in and look like they're going to commit to your thing and you're getting all excited. And then just at random, they'll disappear. And it's a very frustrating process. And the same thing with goose hunting. We decided, me and a couple friends, we decided we were going to goose hunt fields late season, like end of the season, like the last 2 weeks. And there's nobody out there. We drove out to, I think it was Killdeer Plains. They have, we went way out there and we found this field on a map and we just sat it and geese were coming in, flying off the big reservoir there or whatever. I don't know what they got, marshes or reservoir there. And it's just 12-hour days of freezing your hands off and like falling asleep in the blind at noon when nothing's going on. And that's a learning experience, man, because you're frustrated by the time it's over because they're just like so used to being shot at and they want nothing to do with your decoys. Oh, yeah. And you go out and spend $500 each on decoys and you're like, what the hell are we doing out here? Questioning every decision you've ever made. So, it's just that learning part is fun, though, because when you finally get it, you're just like, yes, I this makes so much sense and I love being out here. But do you have any advice for someone like me who's newer? I mean, I've been around the block once. That's about the times I've been on the block, especially with probably doing a lot more goose hunting this year because it's just so much more accessible. Like none of us have a boat except one guy. And when shit freezes, like that's it. You're done. So like goose hunting's pretty affordable comparatively and a little more accessible just because you can go anywhere with a field that you have permission to. You got any advice for the new guys? Because we spent enough money on goose calls and we have to get out there this year. If I don't shoot a goose, I'm going to be very upset with myself.
So the biggest thing I think, I'm gonna go goose and duck here. So
sure, yeah. Anything helps.
Duck hunting, I think, is for most people, duck hunting is going to be the most accessible because there's so much public marshland around. And generally it's easy to find like in your area WMAs or like public land or, whatever it is. But you can get out with just, a pair of waders, 12 decoys, a gun. The biggest thing for like marshes and for fields too is your cover. If these birds, you're talking about like if you shoot a banded goose, 9 times out of 10, it's like a brand new goose, but that 10th time, it's going to be like a 12-year-old goose. That thing's seen some stuff. So like if you and the geese are floating in, you know, they have time to really sit and like look where they're landing and kind of scan. You'll watch them as they come in. They'll start turning their heads like this. And so for ducks, definitely cover. You get your decoys out there, buy a jerk string. They're $20-$30. Get some motion in the water. You don't need like crazy robo duck spinning wings, nothing like that. Like it comes with the territory. Once you start spending money, you're like, when would I use this? And you're like, I know the perfect scenario. And then you buy it. It's like $120 and you're like, well, that's just the way it goes. But ducks like motion. They like calling, and you have to be really specific with it. But if you can get their attention, you got some motion on the water, and they can't see you, generally that's when they're the most comfortable and that's when they'll land. For geese, my big thing is that I don't like to be head on with the geese. Early season is fine because they're not as weary. But as you get into like the regular season, birds start pushing down from Canada and they've been shot at for a month and a half. I like to set up either kind of like, if I was going to be like head on to them, I would go like 45 degrees off or maybe like a full 90 and cross shoot them, because then that time that they're not staring at you, they're looking at the ground and they're looking at where they're going to land. If they don't see these big humps in the ground from your layout blinds, then they're going to be more apt to land. But if you're just sitting there and then like, I mean, we're all guilty of it. You're going to poke your head out, see where they are. And it's like, that's when the lead one will turn and go and all of them go. And everybody's like, well, what happened? Well, they saw something they didn't like. So if you don't give them a reason to leave, generally they'll land. But with the permission thing, there's just a lot of places. Some places just don't have the access, you know, and like, so that's why I think that duck hunting is a little, and I mean, you can still goose hunt in marshes too. I've done it plenty of times, but I would say like, as far as public land goes, water is going to be your most accessible resource. Fields, if you're getting permission, just be respectful. I mean, these farmers get hammered all the time for people wanting to hunt. And, if you're respectful and you can have start a conversation with them and, you know, just don't show up to the house in all your camo and raggedy clothes and stuff, you know, make yourself look presentable. Like it's a business transaction, you know, they don't have to let you on their field. And like, it's just, that's how I've found it to be the most successful, is when I've, generally it's most people that I know, which is helpful. But like, the times that I've had to ask, the more respectful you are, the better received it is. And even if they are saying like, you know, I've got a grandson or something that hunts it, and then like, you know, that's fine. But if you can also kind of play it with permission as well, as like, you know, these birds don't sit and they're not residents for the whole year. So like, if they say, well, my grandson hunts it in November, it's, well, you know, if I came in here in September or October or whatever, you know, you can still like kind of play back and forth with it, but just being respectful for the farmers is like number one priority. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I live surrounded by cornfields, and there are people come up to the house and knock all the time and ask if they can hunt around here. I'm like, well, I'm hunting it, so no. but go maybe ask the guy next door, because I'm out here. But yeah, I found with geese, it's really weird because sometimes in the field across the street, I'll see them land, but it's just at random. I've never been like, they're landing at this certain time of the day, at this certain time. It's just like, sometimes I'll look out the window and I'm tempted to grab my shotgun and just run it as full speed and see if I can get one. But it's like, I know that's not going to work. But yeah, it's my problem is, like the name of your podcast, too many hobbies. I get involved in all of them at the same time, and I never get really good at any of them. I'm constantly like diving in head first. But around here, I don't know, maybe it's just the way I think about it, but you have to be pretty versatile around here if you want to have something to do year round, because like the weather sometimes does not permit you to do things that are like you like to do in the summer. Like I can fish when it's 30 degrees out, but it's not my go-to. Like, it's not the
Right.
funnest thing to do. Whereas
No.
duck hunting is a lot more. I don't know anybody who really duck hunts by themselves very often. It's just like you get to be with your friends. It's miserable, but it's fun because you're like there together and it's miserable. And you can, just try and figure stuff out and come up with conspiracy theories to why ducks aren't coming in. It's really fun. And it's like deer hunting's usually a little more solitary. You're kind of out on your own.
Right.
And if you have enough stuff going on, you can keep yourself occupied all year round and never have any money to do anything fun because you're always spending it on hunting, fishing. It's unlimited. But this is I just can't believe how many people underestimate this area because like nobody talks about Ohio, which is fine. We got plenty of stuff that we can do without everybody. It's just like within an hour's drive of where we are, there's some of the world's best duck hunting marshes. We're on Lake Erie. There's some public land to hunt deer, but there's a lot of private land. And if you're willing to ask, you can get access. There's plenty of deer hunting. Fishing is just absurd around here. I fish across the street in ponds. I drive down the road. I got the Maumee River. I got Lake Erie. I mean, it's just unlimited fishing. So you do quite a bit of fishing too. What's your thoughts on walleye fishing? Because I know a lot of people have a lot of varied opinions on it. Like we'll talk, do you like walleye fishing more than bass fishing? Because that's always the biggest toss up I have with people, because in my opinion, walleye can be pretty boring to fish for sometimes.
So I have two opinions on this and they are conflicting. Good. So I do like walleye fishing. I have my boat, my duck boat, my bass boat, my walleye boat, my pleasure boat is all the same boat. So
that's the way it
I have a 20-foot, exactly. So I have a 20-foot deep V, and it's a walleye boat. It's a side console. I painted it for duck hunting, like it's just an all gray, and it's got two platforms. It's got one on the front, one on the back for bass fishing. Like it's set up versatile enough that I can do both. Like you said, like it's really hard to not try to adapt to other things that are going on. So like bass fishing in March sucks. I'm not going to go out and try and catch bass. The water's 50 degrees, 40 degrees, whatever it is. So I'll walleye fish from like, generally I'll go out and start like trying to troll for walleye like beginning of March, like when I get really bored, and I just start going out. So then it gets pretty good. Like at the beginning of April, walleye start moving into the river. So I've done the walleye run a few times. It's not really my gig. I've taken my 14-footer there, and it's just like, not really worth my time.
No.
But it's the same thing for you. Like, I mean, it's a 45-minute drive for me to get to like Orleans to launch my boat, where like, I go 5 minutes down the road and there's 2 boat ramps. So like I'm 2 miles from the lake. It's really hard for me to like get away from that. But so like I do enjoy walleye fishing, but I enjoy bass fishing more. And I have spots on the lake that like I can boat 100 fish in a weekend, and like from, in spawning area. Mm-hmm. So like, when fish move in, I can smash them. I just absolutely love it. The problem is that when I film it, my walleye videos do exponentially better than my bass
people
fishing
love it.
videos. Oh my God. So like I do film some good walleye videos at the beginning of the year, and then I switch over into bass fishing, and that's more or less just because I really enjoy it and like keep the posting and stuff like that. But that's where it's conflicting, because like if I did walleye videos all year, they would do, like, my channel would do much better. But I just love bass fishing so much, and it's so convenient for me. Like from the middle of May to the end of June, I can go out, smash fish, like no questions asked. I know exactly where to go. I can take my family, I can take my friends, I can take my wife. We can catch fish. Like it's not hard. They're good fish. Like, I mean, I've caught, I don't know, dozens and dozens of 5-pounders out of the same areas for years. And so like they really like the area. And then like I'll venture over to the Portage River. I'll go out to the reefs and try and catch smallmouth, go out to the islands, try and catch smallmouth and bass. But it's really hard to beat walleye meat. So like I do walleye fish. I really like eating walleye. I find it fun just because it's different. Like I go from just dying for ducks for 2 months. I go extra hard in the late season because I know I'm going to hate myself if I don't. So I just chase geese. And then as soon as the geese are done, I'm like, I don't know what to do with my life. So then I start taking pictures, as you can see behind me. I start taking pictures for like 2 months until the walleye fishing semi heats up. And because I'm not like a great walleye fisherman. So I know people catch walleye all year long, but they're traveling all over the place and I don't want to do that. So like I'll start trolling. When jigging gets good, I'll jig, I'll troll. Once it gets to like the crawler harness bite, I do like casting crawler harnesses, but that's about when the bass fishing heats up for me. So then like I go nuts with that. And now that I have 2 kids, what I've decided is that once bass fishing turns off, I'm just going to chill until duck season. Because then like I can gain my brownie points until duck season starts. And
got to bank them.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and then I start I start up the podcast and it's like, then I'm busy for months. And this year I'll be filming for the R&T Duck Call has their company has a TV show that they air on the Sportsman's Channel and the Outdoors Channel. So I got asked to do that this year. So I'll be filming for that. And so there's just a lot going on this year that I need to bank brownie points for. So.
Wake up early before the sun comes up. Yeah. Then you drink a little coffee, fire the gator tail up, then you hit it on out where no man goes. Gator tail flying.
Yeah, that's the hard part with running your own self-decided media, is that you end up doing it a lot because like you just start to meet people and people need help and then people want you to help with video and then they need your help with audio and you end up traveling a ton and you're just like, this is exactly what I wanted, but I'm also really freaking tired all the time and I don't get to hunt as much as I want to, which is like a blessing and a curse, and I absolutely love it. So as a newer duck hunter, let's talk about duck calls and goose calls, because I got this monstrous, just big nested mess of all these beautiful, beautiful calls that I've been working so hard on. So there's some things that I've noticed, and I wonder if it's, in your opinion, personal preference, or if it's based off of if the calls are actually good out. These are not high-end calls. These are all what I would probably call beginner calls. You got your buck gardeners, your mallard hammers, and your wood duck hammers, and your just typical stuff you're going to find at Bass Pro. I got one Jensen call from Sure Shot Game Calls. I have a friend that works there. The Canada hammer and the what Canada is this one?
Hammer. That's what I started with, was the Canada hammer.
You can find it anywhere. That's why everybody starts with it probably. And then this Raptor field-proven call. So I found that we'll start with the goose calls. The Raptor seems to be a lot easier to blow for me for some reason. I have a friend too who has agreed. We both bought it because we can actually blow it. The Buck Gardner is a little more difficult for me to blow, and it freezes up so much. It freezes nonstop. So we have a saying about Buck Gardner that we don't like to use on the podcast, but it's obviously an inside joke. They're both good calls. What do you look for in a goose call? Because it's like when you're out there, the last thing you want is your calls to freeze or fail on you when you're trying to actually call in geese the 1% of the time that I was seeing them out there. And it's like, that's always when they fail. Do you have any tips for that? Because, or calls you recommend? Because that's frustrating. And you're cold and angry already from being freezing. So I don't know.
I mean, for me, what I've noticed in like goose calls and duck calls, way different as far as like the sticking points and stuff like that. There's a lot more variations of duck calls than there are goose calls, but for the most part, you get what you pay for. So like there's a reason that there's, a Canada hammer is $25, $30 or whatever. Or you could have this So I've got 2 GK calls that actually were just sitting on my desk. So I do some photography for GK, so they hooked me up with these calls. They're both acrylic calls. They're both like 200 some bucks. Like they're expensive. But the thing is, like, so I don't know how well you can see it, but like, so these are short reed goose calls. Mm-hmm. So depending on, they refer to them as the guts, but like that little insert there, the more broken in that your reed is, the less it's going to stick. It'll flex a little bit more. So like the more that you call on it, the better it gets. So you can also adjust that reed in there. There's a little nook. So like it sits like a little crevice behind the reed. And that reed should just, barely skin that reed or that crevice there. That'll keep it from like hanging up, because the guts of them are what kind of keep that reed and allow it to flow when you're calling. So like you also need a lot of back pressure on calls. So like the back pressure comes from opening and closing this hand. And that's what also helps vibrate that reed. So like if you just like open hand call on it, it's just going to sound awful. But then like there's a lot of your air that really helps it too. So like once you learn like how much air you need to blow, how much back pressure you have to give on the call, then you can kind of fine tune the sound of it. So the biggest thing is just getting like that real deep, vibrate the reed, but then give it enough air to actually make the noise. And then you can start playing with your back pressure and you kind of go from there. I'm not like a great goose caller. As far as like how technical you can get, I can call geese in, but that's because I do very simple calls. I do single clucks, double clucks, moans, and that's about it. Like I don't get real fancy with it. I've noticed that when I've been around people that do get real fancy with it, that it kind of turns the geese off a little bit. Because when you're thinking about it, like geese are always hearing other geese call. Like if they haven't died yet, it's because they're not getting caught up by like the fancy calling, like they hear. And that's why, like, if you're on a big body of water and there's 2 live geese down from you and you've got 4 dozen goose floaters in front of you, they'll go land with them because they sound like real geese and they move like real geese. So like, it's very finicky. Like geese can be real tough to call in. But from my experience, the more pressured they are, the less technical you should be with your calling. So like I will just, if there's 6 geese coming in, I'll tell everybody to shut up and I'll just do single clucks. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And then once they get close, have somebody maybe hit a moan call, whoop, and then kill it. Once they're locked up, I just kill the calling. And some people will say that the dead silence means that something's wrong or whatever. And so like, then you'll get people, and they start sounding like an Indian, but like, it doesn't need to be that technical. Like it's if you just concentrate on the basics, you're going to kill geese.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
That's what a lot of the stuff that I've read too says. Is just like a lot of like the competition calling and stuff like that is just basically for other people to think that you're cool or whatever. But when I was out there with the guys, none of us are great callers at all, because we all just started learning essentially within the last couple of years. And so we try to keep it very simple, because when you hear geese, when I'm out there and I'm listening to a flock of geese, it's just a bunch of single geese making calls, and they're not doing anything that wild. They just sound like you blow a goose call, it sounds kind of like a goose in general. And like if you have 2 or 3 people doing that, kind of sounds like a couple geese flying by. It might not to them. It might sound like a dying goose when I'm blowing in that thing, but I try my best. When I first got my first duck call, I had to drive to New York to help film some stuff, and dude, it was like a 7.5 hour drive. I gave myself a headache in the car blowing that thing. It was just I went hoarse. I was just blowing that for hours in the car, and it was luckily nobody had to ride with me because they probably would have killed me. But it's like there's no other way to learn. You have to blow the damn thing. Like you're not gonna learn any other way. It's just like fishing.
Well, so that's why these are sitting in my office right now because I work remotely. So like I used to keep them in my truck, and then when I would drive to work, I'd just blow them while I'm driving. I don't drive anymore, so like they're sitting on my desk, and I got a duck call sitting over there somewhere, and like I'll just, if my son's not taking a nap directly below me, I'll just start blowing, and then like I can hear him quack 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 downstairs while I'm blowing it, and I'm like, hey dude, it's duck season. Like I gotta get back on the call. Like
yeah, and I so one of the things recently, keep bouncing back and forth between duck hunting and fishing because that's what we both seem to like a lot. Me. But dude, I just recently like fallen in love with smallmouth fishing. I don't have a boat, so I don't get out on the lake like a lot. It's just not conducive for me to have a big boat right now. Someday I'd like to, but just fishing for smallmouth, even like going out in a kayak when the conditions are not like deadly and gonna die, because you do have to be careful. Like I don't recommend for people to go buy a kayak and just go out mile into Lake Erie. It's not a good idea. No. It's probably not even a good idea for me, but I do it because I really want to catch big smallmouth. But dude, it is so fun. They'll pull my boat around sometimes. Like they fight hard, and they are just an aggressive fish, and they're so big in Lake Erie. They're just, it doesn't even compare. Like the Maumee is fun. Like I like fishing in the Maumee because you can't see anything. You never know what you're going to get. You could catch 10 species in a day.
So muddy.
And it's fun. It's just like a mystery grab bag. You just never know what's going to roll bite your crankbait. But the lake is just a different ball game, and it's I don't know. It gets a bad rap from people who aren't around here because all they heard about is the algae thing, and they're like, "Oh, Toledo, Lake Erie." Yeah. I even have people I know locally, like, I would never drink that water. I was like, you drink that water every day. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah,
like, whatever. Where do you think your water comes from?
Yeah. The moon. I have no idea. But no, do you fish at all in the Maumee River? Because it's like, I fish out there every so often, and I just go out there and wait around just to see what happens because I'm curious about that river. Yeah. Because I never see anybody out there. I see a handful of dudes fishing from the shore for catfish or something around the dams and stuff. But like I've been just exploring the random areas I can wade or get in my kayak. I never see anybody out there, and there's some big fish in that river, man. Like the catfish will break your pole in half.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a buddy that we grew up together. He's got a mud boat, and like that's his thing. He goes out, he flathead fishes for catfish. Like he catches some absolute monsters out there, and like it's insane. The difference I think for me is like when I used to work like I worked at, it's called John's Manville. It's right down kind of just past Jerome Road. So like I could go to Jerome and like fish, or I could go to like any of the little parks, like Side Cut. There's little ponds in there. So I just fish on my lunch break. I fished like around the bridges and stuff, and I've caught some smallmouth. What I've recently started doing was going and taking my boat downtown and then fishing like in the heart of downtown.
You posted a video.
And there's some pretty good fish in there. Yeah. So I did that, and I caught some pretty good fish. I think that next year I'm going to try to do it when it's like a little cooler, like that beginning of June time frame. Go down there. I don't generally go to the Maumee too much. Like I've gone down for the walleye run, and I've done that whole thing, but I don't like fishing in crowds. Like same thing with the ducks. Like I used to really like hunting at the Mallard Club and Metzger's. There's so many people that like I've just tried to branch out as much as I can. And even it's like, I don't know if you're the same way, but like I'll find a spot and I'll be like, I just want to go try it out. Like if I don't catch anything, like I want to learn if I could, and that's kind of what happened downtown was I'm like, the water's muddy, it's warm, but if I can find some fish down there, then I know that those are going to be good spots like earlier in the year. Yeah. And it's the same thing with walleye fishing. Like I see people, you go out and you go 3 miles out on the lake and there'll be a pack of 200 boats. And I'm like, I start to think like, if 200 people just ran over that spot, where did those fish go? So I'll go a half mile west. I'll go a half mile east. I'll start trolling. And normally we'll will do pretty good. And it's like, I like the hunt of it. Like, not to bring the duck hunting into the fishing, but like, I like trying something different and seeing if it works. And then if it does, dude, I feel like I'm on top of the world. So like, I tried to do that in the Maumee. A lot of people told me that there was smallmouth in there, and like, I just didn't have the time to dedicate to it just because of the drive. But I know that there's, like any tributary that is touching Lake Erie is going to have good fish in it. You just have to find them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm right there with you 100%. I'm very much by nature someone who likes to explore new stuff. Like,
yes,
I know so many people who will religiously fish the same place with the same lure, with the same rod every day for their whole life. And some people love that. That's their thing. Don't have anything against that. But for me, I'll go to a place once and I'll catch some fish and it'll be fun. And then I'll be like, okay, well, I know there's fish there generally. I mean, I know in the river it's a lot different. That can change at any moment. But I was like, well,
to the water level. And
just there's so many factors. Like, you can hammer smallmouth one day at side cut, and then you go back a week later, same condition, same everything, and the water's a foot less, and they're just not catching anything. And I went to, and I mean, if anybody follows me on anything I've been doing lately, I just got obsessed with fly fishing. And like, the Maumee River is not an ideal place to fly fish, I have come to find out. Because fly fishing and flies don't make a lot of noise. And all the fish I've caught in the Maumee make a shitload of, all the lures make a shitload of noise smacking off stuff. So it is very difficult. I will find a way to figure it out eventually, because I'm like you. I like screwing around and just seeing what works. I waited in and out of Weirs Rapids for, I would say, damn near 4 hours, and I did not catch a single fish. And I thought my arm was going to fall off. Yeah, it's fun. And I know for a fact if I would have brought a crankbait rod and a crankbaits and a regular, bait casting rod or whatever, I would have slayed fish, because my wife and my brother's wife were fishing, and they had just regular rods, and they were catching, catfish, catching gar, catching like a bunch of cool stuff. It was just fun to see. But like, my brother and I we're like, we're going to fly fish today. I mean, I hooked on to probably 2 catfish, and they probably just spit the lure out because they're like, I don't want this.
Yeah.
And it was fun, but it's like, I like that experience, just to know what's out there. And it's fun to explore these spots where you never see anybody. And it's kind of a bitch to wade across Weirs Rapids. It's like, you find these big holes, you fall in. Yeah. But it's like, it's
You're
fun.
Slipping around all over the place, and it's like, it's
rocks.
brutal.
But it's something to do. And there's so many little intricacies on the river that's just fun. And I've seen fish in there a ton. It's just like, I don't have time to wade across the river every single day. It takes hours to just like foot your way through the river, but it is fun. And it's like, I'm starting to get that way with duck hunting. Like, I don't like being around crowds. That's not why I go outside. It's not like, same reason I don't like going to Cedar Point, because it's just too many people and I want to be alone, and I don't find it fun. Like, I view hunting and fishing, it can be a social activity, but it's generally people I want to be around. Like, I don't want to fist fight a guy for a walleye. Like, they're good to eat, but they're not that good. Like, you could just have the damn thing, dude. Like, it's totally okay. I'll just go on the boat, on my buddy's boat in the lake, and we'll catch a limit, and I won't have to stand in the water for 6 hours. So, totally cool with that.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't want to say it's overrated, because people will probably try and kill me if I say that in Toledo area, but just, I don't know. There's a lot more to do than catch walleye around here, in my opinion. So,
well, yeah, I mean, dude, we've got such a vast fishery on the lake. Like, you can go out, catch perch. I've seen people out there trolling, and I talk to them like, that doesn't look like a walleye rod. And they're like, oh, we were muskie fishing. And I'm like, what? And it's like, but I mean,
they're there.
We're connected to St. Clair, and there's big muskies there, and they'll travel like. And they were like, yeah, we've caught 45 inches right by Turtle Island. I'm like, what? Okay, whatever you say.
Dude, it's just a vast wilderness of fish. And like, I don't know, I view hunting and fishing as very much the same thing. Like, you're trying to use something to lure in an animal. The fish bite it. Yeah. The ducks fly into the decoys. It's all the same thing. It's just a difficult way to interact with nature, and it's just very primal. It's like, because I used to do a lot of backpacking and stuff, and it was fun. It was like all new, like to be outside and to be in wilderness, and it's like, okay, what am I getting out of this at this point? Like, I still like going in the backcountry, but I'm bringing a fly rod now. I want to know what's out there. Like, I want to know if I can fool that animal, because that's like the peak for me. It's like, am I smarter than this fish? Are my skills good enough to like look at this water and read it and be like, there's a rock there, there's going to be a dead zone over here or something on this bend, and that's where the fish are going to be, and can I catch them? Like, that's where the thrill is now, instead of just existing outdoors. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's hard to find that locally, because there are a lot of people recreating, but at the same time, if you work, you can find those spots.
Well, I think I'm right there with you, because like I like the thrill of going and figuring something out. So like, I think that there are a lot of people, but I try to focus anymore. Like, I save a vacation and I'll do stuff during the week when there's less people. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest thing. And I try not to do stuff like peak any season. So like peak walleye season, jigging. Anybody can go out and jig. So it's like, I try to avoid like that. But there's so many places. Like, I mean, you can stretch anywhere from the Maumee River all the way down to like Vermilion, Huron. Mm-hmm. And like, you catch fish anywhere out there. So like, I like anymore trying to go somewhere where I know there's not going to be a lot of people and seeing if it's going to work. Because I don't need the walleye to like feed my family or anything. It's just I'm going out for fun. And so if I'm not battling boat traffic the whole time, it's more fun for me. Yeah. And if I can go somewhere and like be 2 miles from the crowd of boats and I'm trolling and I'm catching fish consistently, then that's what I'm going to do. But you're braver than I am for the fly fishing, man. I've heard so many people that are like, when you go fly fishing, you're not going to go back. And I'm like, I'm not ready to not go back. So I've talked to people that like start getting in the fly fishing and they tell me how addictive it is. And it's like, man, I got too much stuff already. And like, if I go dumping like hundreds of dollars into fly rods and flies and everything, it's like, I don't know how I come back from that.
You're 100% correct. Everything they've told you is true. Well, the way I'll put it to you is, you travel a lot. You do video work. You're traveling, filming hunting stuff now. You do like, to bring a fly rod is so easy on a plane. Yeah. You can, I've taken like a combo kit, a 4-piece combo kit. And I've said this a million times already on some of the solo episodes of the podcast. It's like, just strap it to a backpack and you just buy a little cheap thing of flies off Amazon or something. Yeah. TSA does not care. Those hooks are so small, it doesn't matter. That's all you need to fly fish. Like, it's just the combo. Like, when I go fishing with spinning gear, I have all these giant tackle boxes and shit everywhere. Yeah. For traveling, it's totally worth to have a fly rod, but you will get obsessed with it, and then you will be like duck hunting, and you're like, oh, I had 10 decoys to start, and now I have a trailer that's dedicated to decoy. Like, that's what will happen. So I'm just warning you, don't do it unless you're ready to make that commitment. But it is very convenient for traveling. No. I travel for work a lot, so like I've always thought about like, because you can buy, like you said, those 4-piece kits, and it's like then you only got like a 1.5 section that's, like you said, right on your backpack. I thought about it. I almost did it in Georgia. I was down there fishing, and I was like, do I buy just a cheap spinning rod and take it home, or do I buy a fly fishing kit? And I'm like, I'm like, this isn't the place for me to start. So I bought a cheap spinning rod. I stuffed it in my back or my check-in, and I was the way that I thought about it in the long term was, everywhere I go, I can swing through a Walmart. I can, throw a $30, $20 spinning rod in the car and just like give it to some little kid when I'm fishing. I was like, If I do that like 5 times, I'm going to be out what it's going to cost me to buy a fly rod combo anyway.
Right, yeah.
Like, it feels good to just like leave your rod to some little kid or something, but it's like, I don't have unlimited money to just keep buying fishing poles at Walmart, you know? So for $200, I can get a combo and it just stays with me. And if I break it, it's like, well, I've beat the crap out of it. But yeah, I'm not trying to talk you into it. It will cost you money.
No, you did already. It's fine.
And you will be addicted. But hey, that's one more person for me to fly fish with locally. So I'm not going to say, you know, I'm not trying to convince you. So
fair enough. You've convinced me.
It's fun. I'll take you out sometime. We could do it together because I'm not I'm not a great fly caster, but it's easy. Like catching bluegill on a fly rod is just so fun. It's the funnest thing ever. Kids are better at it. I gave my nephews like fly rods to play with. They never tangled it up once. They tangled the other rods every 10 minutes and it like I don't even get to fish. They just hadn't have any problems with it. But when you add a hook to the end, that's a little more dangerous.
That makes sense.
Something that I have been debating lately is, you know, it is expensive. People have this fantasy where like they think they're going to get into this outdoors hobby and it's not going to be that expensive. Like every YouTube video is like, how can I do this new fishing for not expensive? Like it's going to be expensive. Right. Eventually it's going to, because you're going to be obsessed with it. Like just like fly fish, like you're going to get obsessed and then you're going to spend a lot of money on it. So I don't even think about that anymore. Like if I'm doing something, I'm going to go all in and I just know it.
Yeah. That's my problem.
With duck hunting, it's a little tougher because I will say that it's probably one of the. I always tell people to get into the outdoors no matter how you can, because it's just like if you like something, go get the cheap waders and see if you even like it or borrow them or something. Don't go out and buy a $500 pair of waders because they might just sit in your garage forever. But if you're into it and I borrowed a pair of waders last year and it was miserable. And I'm looking to get a new pair this year. But because I know I'm not going to stop now because I've already got decoys. I've already got, the gun. I've already got all the stuff I need to do this, and I have people to do it with. So it's like it's not I'm not gonna just not do it. What's a good thing to look for in waders? Because you can easily go on Amazon and get like $100 pair of waders, but I'm going to assume they're not going to hold up very well. And at this point, I'm just looking for stuff that's going to last because we're like guys like us are hard on shit. We're always on the. I ripped the pair of waders I borrowed already, and it was like, well, now I have to buy new freaking waders, and I have to buy myself some. So it's like, what do you look for in waders? Because that's pretty much between the waders and the gun. That's pretty much the vital parts of duck hunting. Without that, you're going to be in bad time.
Yeah. So. I mean, like I've run through the neoprenes, the 600 gram waders and all that. I think when it comes to like, especially hunting apparel, and this includes waders as well, you get what you pay for. So like, there's a lot of people that'll be like, I've been wearing the same Walmart waders for 10 years, blah, blah. When they rip, I'm just going to buy another pair. It's like, there's this stigma in duck hunting where like it's cool to be miserable, and I don't understand it because
it's brutal.
I don't like being like you're facing the worst conditions of the year for something that you can for a bird that fits in your hand. Like it's the dumbest thing of all time, but like it's when we're like on the lake, like you have the lake effect. Everybody knows about the lake effect. You're out on the lake. You are the lake effect. So like, why would you want to be out there and cheap stuff? So like, I understand that there's like, people are on a budget, but if you're going to focus on one single thing in duck hunting, it's buy breathable waders, because breathable waders have a barrier against you in the water where neoprenes soak up the water. Mm-hmm. They keep a barrier for you, but the water will get into the neoprene, it'll freeze, and then it will freeze all the way through the waders. So like they might say that they're 1,600 gram waders. That's just the boot. The wader themselves isn't insulated at all. If you look on the inside, there's nothing. So like breathable waders have quilted insulation. Some of them don't have insulation at all or removable insulation. And like even the ones that don't have insulation in them are going to be warmer than the neoprenes because they don't have the like the continuity of it'd be like an electrical term, like conductivity. Like it literally will conduct the cold through the waders onto your skin. So that's my thing. I use gator waders. I've been working with them for a few years now. I haven't had any issues with them. They've been fantastic. Like I also have a pair of backup Avery waders. They're super warm. They're both breathable. So like if I ever have an issue with one, I have a backup pair. Or like if I have a pair that I forgot to like take inside the night before and they froze in the barn, then I can just use the other pair, you know, and like, but that comes with like the experience and the territory of spending all of your money on one single thing. So like, I think that the waders are a big deal. In the last couple of years have switched all of my hunting gear. Like I was like part of I'll just buy cheap stuff because I'm going to destroy it anyway. But that's not the case. Like when you pay for nice gear, it lasts, it's warm, it does what it's supposed to do. So like I don't cheap out on any of that stuff anymore, and I don't get cold. Everybody, like, it's a perfect example. Last year I bought brand new lacrosse boots. So I had 1,200 gram, like kind of like muck boots, but you know, just the rubber, but they're insulated. They're really, really nice, really warm. And then I bought all Sitka stuff. I get a good price on the Sitka. So I just dove headfirst into it. I'm like, I don't want to be cold anymore. It's miserable. And so like I was wearing like, I think it was like my Sitka coat. I had a pair of like wader pants under my bibs. I just had like Carhartt bibs on, and my lacrosse boots. And it's a lot. I mean, I spent a lot of money on it. Don't get me wrong. But I was out in a field. It was -20 wind chill in a blind. And I was just sitting there drinking coffee like I was in my living room. And like I had two of my buddies with me, and they were like shivering. My one buddy was like, I've lost feeling in my toes, and now we're into here. And I'm like, stop buying cheap shit. Like you guys want to, like, you know, you spend all this money on decoys, on ammo, on boats, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, but you're not going to take care of yourself. So the biggest thing is like, for me, I started taking care of myself, buying the nice waders, buying the nice jackets, buying the nice wader pants, and I don't get cold. And it's way more enjoyable for me now. Anybody at the ramp can make fun of me for wearing the expensive shit. I really don't care anymore. I've gotten the comments on YouTube. I don't care. I'm the one that's laughing when you guys are like, oh, I got to go in. Nah, I'm good. Like I'm chilling.
Yeah. And I mean, it's totally fine to get cheap stuff. Like a lot of the stuff I do is focused towards beginners, and it's like, dude, you can't in good conscience buy a $600 pair of waders if you don't even know if you like it. Like, yeah, it is miserable, but like someone like you or I guess at this point, when you've done it for long enough and you know that it's not just like a passing fancy, like that's when it gets serious. And you begin to know where you can skimp on stuff. Like some stuff you don't like, I don't need a $300 wader bag or like wading bag or something. Like I'll just use my backpack, but someday I might. I don't know. It doesn't matter right now. I'm just still learning the ropes, but it's like once your body goes, you're screwed. Like I've stood in marshes, I've put in plenty of, 6-hour mornings out there, 12-hour days, and just I can't feel my feet. The first season I ever hunted deer, I just bought whatever camo boots because I didn't know any better. I'm just like, boots are boots. They have to be camo, and which is not true at all. And and like I didn't have anybody to teach me either. I just like went out there and figured, like I sat in the woods and just like hope that I see a deer. And it's like the first thing I did the next season is I went and spent like $300 on a pair of fully insulated, massive boots because my feet hurt so bad from sitting out there in that freezing weather. And dude, now I put those boots on and they might weigh like 6 pounds each. I don't care. I'll get stronger. I'll wear those boots.
Yeah.
As long as I'm not walking miles, which around here in Northwest Ohio, you don't do. This is like, people get offended when I say this. They're like, oh, I'm like, dude, we are not Colorado. I am not hiking 30 miles to kill a deer. I'm going like
flat.
Yeah, across the street, it's like a eighth of a mile to the woodlot. Like, that's as far as I'm going. Like, I am not hiking across the wilderness, okay?
Right.
Like, so I don't know. People like, it's weird too, because hunting has become like this one big singular thing because everybody watched Meat Eater. And it's like, dude, this is Ohio and Michigan. Like, especially this is the flattest part of Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need that shit. Like,
but it's also freezing cold. So like you need to be prepared for the cold, but you also need to understand that like we're not running marathons out here to get game. Like I'm driving a boat 3 miles and then I'm getting off of it and I'm walking 20 feet setting up a blind. Like it's not the same. But like you said, like if there are people out there that are looking to at least get into it, my suggestion would be, if you're going to buy like cheap waders and you're going to buy the cheap like clothing to see if you like it, do it early in the season so you're not freezing cold. Learn that you like it and then invest, because same thing, I mean, it goes for anything that you first get into. If you're going to go fishing, you're not going out and buying a $500 Abu Garcia combo. Like, you're buying a Berkeley rod with a Pfluger Presidential, and you're going to see, well, and like that's still a good setup, but like you're not out there trying to like break the bank to see if you even like fishing. Yeah. Same thing with hunting. Like if you're gonna bow hunt for, like, if you're gonna see if you want to bow hunt for deer, you're probably gonna borrow a bow from somebody. You're gonna wear a brown sweatshirt, or you're gonna borrow somebody's camo jacket and go sit in a deer stand, and that might happen 3 or 4 times before you see a deer, and then they get that rush and you're like, all right, I like this. Yeah. And then you're like, now I'm going to go buy my own bow. So when that thing comes back out, I smoke it in the heart. Yeah. But it's all linear. Like it's a progression.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time
I didn't have 5 boats when I first started, but now I do. Do I have them for random stuff? Absolutely. I didn't have 40, 50 dozen decoys. I had 2. Mm-hmm. I remember I bought 2 dozen decoys from Academy Sports. They had them on sale. It was $25 for 6 of them. I bought 2 dozen and I was like, oh, let's go. Like, I have my own decoys now. I have my own bag.
Nobody can
I'm going by
me.
myself. Nobody can tell me when I can and can't go. And then I went all the time. And then I was like, these people are a little closer than I like them. How do I get out of here? And then so I went to a different part of a marsh. And I'm like, oh, there's nobody over here. And I hunted that for a couple of years. And then it's like, then I meet some people and they show me the ropes. And it's like, now I'm lucky if I use all of my decoys in one season. Yeah. There's a setup for different stuff. I got Texas rigs. I got long lines. I got long line singles. I got, field decoys. I've got shells. I've got full bodies. I've got all this stuff. And it's like, they all have a purpose for something that I've run into, but that's on a level of like, man, it's 10 plus years of me figuring it out and realizing that actually my whole life is now dedicated to this, it's not just like it is a hobby, don't get me wrong, but like, it's who I am. Like it's all like, it's a sickness. Yeah, it is. And everybody gets bit by it at some point. And whether it's work or whether it's your family or you got a dog or something, like you get obsessed with something. And so like it all starts somewhere, and it doesn't have to be, tons of money that you invest in it to see if you like it. So I agree with what you're saying, that I didn't want to come off as like anybody that's going to start this needs to spend thousands of dollars. It's just like, once you get into it, invest in yourself was the message I was trying to get across. Yeah, that's just like the message that Instagram gives you. And like, some people don't realize that the whole point of these social media networks is to try and sell you shit. So like, they think these people online are like, I mean, dude, don't get me wrong. I've been paid to push fucking products for people. Of course, like that's part of your job is running a media company and a podcast and a bit. Like sometimes you just get advertising, but it's like, right.
some of these people, it's like that's what their social media platform is. Their job is to sell you stuff. And it's like, that's totally fine. Like, you're allowed to sell whatever you want, but I think people get this impression that they have to do that. And that's not what it, like, you don't have to go out and spend $4,000 on Sitka gear on your first day out.
Yes.
First deer I ever killed, I was wearing the shittiest camo jacket from Walmart. It cost $35. I still have it. I wear it all the time. It's just like a random puff coat when it's like kind of not cold out and I need something to throw on. Yeah. But like, it's like my beater jacket. I just leave it in my car. But like, I went to Cabela's and spent many hundreds of dollars on camo at this point because I got really cold and I got heated socks and shit because my circulation sucks in my feet apparently and my hands. And that's another thing I want to ask you, dude. What do you do to keep your hand? Like, that's the worst part. Once my hands go, I'm in a bad shape. I got electric hand warmers. I got like the thickest gloves I could find. I just turn into a little bitch when my hands get cold. I can't help it, dude. Like, what's your secret? Because I will say I'm pretty tough. Like, people would not generally say like I'm like a whiner or anything, but good Lord, when my hands get cold, I'm like, I don't know, man. I'll sit here and suffer, but this sucks.
I know. I've been there so many times. I've tried, like, I thought that the waterproof, like, gauntlet gloves were going to be my saving grace. I've done all of this stuff, and this might blow everybody's mind, but the warmest my hands are is when I'm not wearing gloves.
How?
From what I can only gather is that the gloves, like, start to cut off my circulation.
That would make sense.
Or they hold the cold water on them too long. So, like, I have jackets and coats, jackets and vests that have, like, hand warmer pockets. Mm-hmm. So when I'm sitting in a blind, dude, I just have my hands in my hand warmer pockets. My body is keeping my hands warm. Then when I go to shoot, I might have, like, I have these really, really thin gloves. Sitka makes them. They're really cheap. Like, and I didn't think anything of it when I bought them. I'm like, they're just like $20 or whatever. Like, I'll try them. They are like the warmest gloves I have. I have 4 pairs of them now.
Wow.
I keep an extra pair in my front pocket, like, of my waders. And if I'm picking up decoys or something and my hands get wet, I swap them. So I just have like 3 or 4 pairs all the time. Sometimes they're in my like other pockets. I just swap out like really thin gloves. And like I've talked to other people that will buy like those 10 packs of like the wool gloves, like the real thin ones. And they have the same thing as me. They're like, when I put on really big gloves, they either hold moisture and then my hands get colder, or like at some point they just like will cut off circulation somewhere. So like the gauntlet gloves for me, they just cut off the circulation at fingertips. So like when I take them off, my hands would be fine. But like when I pick up decoys, I don't wear gloves unless there's like ice and I'm trying to like beat it off. Then like I'll put on gloves just so I don't cut my hands, because that's like that just sucks. But like I don't know. I ran into the same thing with my waders with my feet. I was like, my feet are always freezing cold, and I put on 2 pairs of socks. And then one day I was like, I was in a rush and I forgot to grab my thick socks, and I only had like, the calf high, like athletic socks. And I wore those and my feet were fine. And I was like, what's going on here? And then so I started to like ask around. I'm like, for some reason, like my feet are warmer when I don't have like all the socks like stuck in there. And I'm like, well, insulation of boots is like, it uses air in there as like a pocket, like a barrier to like keep your feet warm. And I'm like, well, I guess that makes sense. So like, I don't wear like, I don't overdo it with socks. I don't overdo it with gloves. I just keep dry stuff dry. Like if my hands get wet, like if I'm, my dog is the worst with this. So like, he'll bring something back and I grab it out of his mouth and they shakes all over me and now I'm soaked. So like my hands will be wet, my arms will be wet. So then like once I put my hands in my hand warmer pockets, it'll like kind of like wick the water away. And then once it starts to dry, just because of like my body heat, then my hands get warm again. So like I've done the electric hand warmers. They're super nice for like, what I find is if I'm driving a boat, my hands are obviously freezing cold because of the wind. So like I will have like a hand warmer in my my bag. Like I keep one of those like 10 packs of the hot hands. Mm-hmm. And so like if I get somewhere and like my hands are so cold from driving that I can't start setting up decoys, then like I'll get out a hand warmer, or I'll put the hand warmers in the hand warmer pocket of my coat or my vest or whatever, just to like kind of like supplement it. But like as far as like picking up decoys and stuff, like my hands are always like, they're never warmer than they are when I am not wearing gloves.
Mind blown.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one that I've talked to that has that same problem.
Hey, what's up everyone? James Appleton here, co-founder of Absolute Aid. Welcome to the Seek to Do More program. This program will help you help yourself by developing the daily habits that will elevate your entire life. Over the next 30 days, you'll complete the doers list every single day. And the doers list includes 1, do something physical. 2, follow and stick to your diet of choice. 3, read a real book. 4, further your education on purpose. 5, dedicate time to your spiritual life. And 6, dedicate time to your hobbies. So if you're ready to take a structured, proven approach to build the daily habits that will allow you to get the most out of yourself, your time, and your life every single day, the Seek to Do More program is your blueprint. So make a choice, commit to yourself, sign up below, and let's get started.
I will have to try that because it's just, that's what makes it miserable for me. Like, my body doesn't get that cold, like, you know, but just from walking through the water and setting up, I mean, sometimes you get too hot, unless it's like insane winds. Even when we're setting up, sometimes I'll take my coat off and just like stay a little cold because I know, well, I don't want to get soaking wet on the inside because that just makes you cold. And then I'll even like vent my coat on and off throughout the day if I start getting too hot. Like my legs are usually fine. It's just the hands and feet just get, you know, that feeling like they sting and they burn and it's just brutal. So I'm gonna have to try that. And one thing that worked for me, honestly, is I bought these weird neoprene socks for my waders, and they have like a fuzzy liner. Dude, those things work great. Like I wore those and my feet weren't cold at all. You know, they have the electric socks, but those like work for like an hour or two. And then they always say they last 5 hours. They never last 5 hours. They always last like an hour or two. And then they like slowly
maybe in like
fizzle
the beginning
out.
of September.
Yeah. And then they just die on you. So like, I don't know if electric socks is the way to go. I wear them in my hunting boots sometimes because you're just literally in the wind in a tree stand sometimes, and it does suck the heat right out of your body like that. But with duck hunting, you're usually low to the water and you're like in a blind or something, so it's not too terrible. I mean, it does sometimes. Dude, the first time I ever went duck hunting, I was prepared for like the cold. Everybody assumes that it's a cold weather thing up here. First time I went duck hunting, I dressed up. Dude, it was like 70 degrees when we were done, and I was like, I'm gonna die. Like I might have to get naked out here and just like swim back because this is miserable. I was over prepared, which was insane because like you just expect to freeze. That's what everybody's told me my whole life, and it's no.
Well, that's why the breathables are nice because they breathe. You know, like that's in the name, but like it kind of circulates the air through. So like. I know when I've had, when I used to wear neoprenes and like in the early season, it was just like an absolute swamp. Like I would dump water out of my waders and it was just sweat. And then like, so like with the breathables, like they're insulated, they're still warm, but they're not like, it's not creating the mess that like neoprenes will.
Yeah. Have you hunted ducks or geese on the Maumee River? Because that's the first place I ever hunted, and it was very hard. I felt like it was like much more difficult than the marsh, but that's just inexperience, maybe.
No, it's a different atmosphere. I mean, like you got moving water, you got skinny water, so like it's a different animal for sure. Like there's a lot of people that I talk to that will like they'll go just try it. Like if the marsh zone goes out and the north zone's still in, then they'll go to Maumee, and they're like, man, I just couldn't figure it out. And it's like, well, it's different because of the moving water. So like, you're not looking for like in a marsh, you're trying to show that there's like a party going on in this hole. So like, you've got decoys out there and they're spread out, but you're making it look like these birds are dabbling and like, feeding essentially. And the river isn't necessarily like a feeding area for birds. Like, it's more of a loaf. So like, you've got different flight times than you would in the marsh. Like, you're not going to see a ton of birds like right away in the morning, and like you'll start to see them trickle in. Yeah. So like, it's more of a loaf than like a feeding area. But also like with the current and stuff like that, like puddle ducks will naturally like go to stagnant water. Same thing. I mean, if you're fishing and you're looking for fish, like they might be sitting in stagnant water. Birds on moving water will tend to stay towards the sides, or like anywhere that there's like a shore. So like, you're trying to mimic that as opposed to like a dabbling situation, or like on the lake with divers, you're imitating like a raft of divers. So you've got these long lines that are like interconnecting, and like when you look out onto the water, it makes it look like a blob. So like, that's what attracts those types of ducks. So you start to learn the different patterns of birds in different types of water. So like the rivers, you're going to be set up with more of like a shore spread, where like they might be, only at the most like 20 yards offshore. So like, you're kind of creating this line that's following the shore, and you're just kind of signifying like, well, you're imitating like a group of puddle ducks kind of hugging the shore. And then like the water will naturally give it a little bit of motion too. So it's more of like, it's more like in fishing terms, it's more finesse, like
that makes sense.
You're trying to finesse those birds. Yeah.
Because watching them, like, I don't want to give away where we were hunting or anything, but it was a little bit more stagnant water. It was a little more tucked away, and they did have, some like teal flew in at rocket speeds. Those things are so damn fast. And that's another hurdle to overcome with, because like I started deer hunting, which is, you generally don't shoot them when they're running.
A stationary target.
Like you have a little bit more leeway than with ducks. And that just trying to learn to lead on ducks and trying to like shoot a moving target is just very frustrating when you're starting out. And that's something that I'm learning with. And I'm going to shoot not as regularly as I should, because like you, too many hobbies. I got freaking archery, bow hunting, fishing, like casting and fly fishing. That takes a lot of practice. You got shooting, takes a lot of practice. You got even like switching out barrels on the shotgun for deer and duck all the time. It's just a lot to take in, because I don't have a lot of guns. I just have basically one shotgun for deer and a muzzle loader. But use it for ducks too. And it's like, there's just a lot to learn, but it is doable. And I think that's part of becoming a well-rounded outdoorsman, is you just got to be adaptable to this stuff. Like, I'll never be the best marksman for ducks probably, but I mean, I still like to kill them fast. I don't want them just like, injuring them. That doesn't do anything for me. So how much time do you spend per year probably like shooting, or have you just been doing it for so long that it's not like something that you really need to put a ton of time into? Because I go to the range, usually I panic and do it a couple of weeks before I should be hunting, which is not the greatest, but it's just hard to find time all the time. I try and go out and shoot like trap or something just to get that feel, but it's really not even similar, because they're usually flying at you and not away from you. So I don't know. I don't know. How much time do you put in? That's what I'm trying to ask here.
So when I first started, it seemed like we were doing a lot more like skeet shooting, just in general, like just for fun. So I would shoot throughout the summer, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. And then like, I haven't shot skeet now in probably 3 years. The last time I did it was my my diaper party. So yeah, like 2.5 years ago. Yeah, it is fun. It's just for me, I haven't had the time. Like,
It is.
I have skeet shooters here, like the launchers and stuff like that. What I was thinking about this the other day. I have a shot cam for filming, and
Yeah, that's cool.
It got kind of off the sight on the camera got off of like where my actual shooting was last year, and I was thinking the other day, I'm like, I really need to just go throw some clay pigeons so I can get that dialed in. But I think it comes with experience. Like, I mean, I shoot, hundreds of times a year. So like throughout a season, you shoot 300-400 times or whatever. And like with diver ducks, they're basically like, they're just as fast, if not faster than teal. So like, when I know I'm dialed on diver ducks, I'm dialed on everything. Like geese are, when you're shooting, buffle heads on the lake that are moving, I mean, cruising, and you're leading them 5 foot, then like you go to a goose and like you're putting that bead like basically on its head, and like it's not going very far. So like I think it's the difference between like diver ducks, puddle ducks, and geese is that I noticed that people that are like really into goose hunting and they focus on goose hunting a lot whiff on divers all the time. Even puddle ducks, they will, if they're like, if it's a passing shot. I'm very much into like finishing birds as close as possible. Like there's not a whole lot of times that I'll call a 40-yard passing shot, and people get mad at me all the time that I should. And I'm like, it's not conducive. Like it's the same thing as walleye. I'm not out here to feed my family. Like anymore, it's like I know I'm filming and I'm trying to create like quality content, and it's always in the back of my mind. Like I'm also just like, I'm a sportsman. I'm a conservationalist. Like I don't want to wound birds. Like my goal every year is to find every bird that we shoot. That's why I have a dog. That's why we have all of the stuff. Like, we have boats so we can go get these birds. We can take kayaks to places that we know we can't get to so we can get the birds. And it's like, every year a few slip away, and, it's just the way it goes. But like, I try to finish birds as close as possible. Like I don't like shooting, especially geese. I do not like sailing geese because they will just move. Like it's really difficult to find them. But this is my 3rd year with my Beretta, my new gun. And like, even just from the day I got it, it's just been dialed. Like it suits me very well. I don't have a lot of like times that I don't feel like I'm on my A game. So like to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, I just have shot so much that once I get back into a rhythm in the season, that I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you too, is like, that was one of the things that was really frustrating to start, is you don't really know the effective range of the shotgun when these birds are coming in. Because it's like, you could blast a slug at a deer at 100 yards, and it's just like, all right, well, whatever. And it's the same gun. So you're in your mind, you're like, well, but you don't take into account that, and there's so much excitement. They come out of nowhere. It's so fast. Right. And I'm relying on the guys I'm with. I'm like, you tell me when to shoot, because if it were up to me, I have no idea. I'll either wait for them to get way too close and they're going to fly away because they saw me, or I'm going to like lob 70-yard shots and not even get anywhere near them and scare them all away. So that's one of the bigger hurdles for me to overcome, is the timing of the shot, because they're just, they do weird stuff too. Like, especially, I don't know. They're just not like these static little targets, like everybody's so used to practicing.
And they're not linear like a clay pigeon, like you can lead a clay pigeon and know where that's going. But like when a teal comes in and it's swooping like this, like they're erratic. So it's really tough to like, once you've seen enough birds in their environment and them flying, you can start to predict better where they're going to go. So like the saying is always shoot where they're going, not where they've been. So like once you start to learn like like I can see a buffalo coming by and I'm like, this is going to be a tough one. And it's just like you lead it and you see like, because most of the diver ducks are only flying a few feet off the water anyway. So when you shoot, you can see your shot. So you can basically see where you hit, like where you were shooting at it. Where like a goose, I've watched pellets go into a goose and it just fly away. So like there's a lot where it's like your shot size matters, the shot, like the style. So like if you're shooting tungsten or bismuth or steel, the wind, people never take into account the wind. If you're hunting on a 30-mile-an-hour day, that as soon as it comes out of your barrel, it's going to be doing weird stuff. So like there's a lot of stuff that you have to subconsciously think about. And when your mindset is that you don't want to lose birds, you get a little bit more picky on your shots. But also when shotgun shells now cost $1 or $2 a piece, you're like, well, I really don't want to be blasting $6 at this, whatever it is. Like I rarely will shoot all three. So like, unless there's a third bird there that I have a shot on, I'm not one of those Hail Mary type shooters. Like I don't want that bird to go down at 60 yards because if it's a diving duck, I'm going to be out on the lake for the next half hour with another person trying to wait until it pops up and shoot it on the water. So like, that's another thing that's kind of made me a more, that's made my shot calling a little bit more, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word, but like I'm pickier, like I don't want to just shoot to shoot. It's not my thing. Yeah.
I'm right there with you. And that's one of the learning curves when you're with people that are also fairly new. It's just like, you're all trying to figure it out together.
Right.
And it's part of the fun, but like it's not like playing a video game. Like something's going to die on the other end or get wounded. So you have to be a little more ethical about it, which ethics
that was
hard.
The word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's hard with ethics too, because the end goal is to kill something, but I like don't want it to be like, haha, that was fun. Like I just blasted this bird. Like we lost one of the last times we went, and like it fell out of the sky and more ducks are coming in, and like nobody could find it. And it was like, this sucks. Right. Like that's not like, not because you just want to take a duck home, but like, or have bragging rights. It's like, this duck is just dying out there somewhere. Like this sucks, like get it over
suffering.
with.
Yeah.
And
I'm always like, I always want clean kills. I don't always get clean kills, but like
it's impossible.
But we've also gone to the next level of like, we make sure that we take dogs with us to help us. And like I know like when I shoot a bird and it goes somewhere, I will like, mark, and I won't move until somebody goes over there. And I'm like basically casting on like a dog. And it's like, but that's what's helpful. Like that's the stuff that you start to learn as you go. Like you pick a landmark and then you can walk towards it, like in the general area of where that bird is. And like, it comes with the territory. Like you're not always going to get the clean kills. You're not always going to make the right decisions. But I personally, like when my YouTube channel and the videos started getting traction, I started to look at stuff that people were asking me about, like in the comments, and people that like would message me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it was. And I've tried my hardest to be someone who's educational as well as like the entertainment value of it. So like, if something happens during the hunt, like I generally will recap it at the end. Like if something happened, I'm like, this is what happened. This is what we did. Not a lot of people will watch to the end because they just think that I'm just rambling about random stuff. But like, there's generally a method to the madness. And then like, I'll come up with these like tips and tricks videos where like something that I find useful, somebody else might find useful. So like you're saying, like when there's a group of 3 or 4 people that are just starting out, that's kind of the target for that audience, is like looking for the people that are trying to find those questions and get answers to them without somebody being a dick to them. Because there's a lot of people that you can reach out to on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and people will think like you're coming for them. And it's like, dude, people just want to learn stuff. And it's like, there's not always a cut and dry answer on Google when it comes to this. And like, especially in our area, there isn't really anybody making waterfowl content. You know, like there might be like shows that come in and they film an episode or like whatever, but like that's not teaching you anything. That's just showing you what's here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I get both sides of the positive and negative side of it, but like I feel like the amount of people that I've had message me and tell me that they've learned something from what I'm doing is way more beneficial than me just being like, this is what we did and figure it out on your own, you know? So like, if that's something that I can give back, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I started doing that too on the YouTube for this podcast. I started doing shorter clips of like the questions that I have, because I'm learning all this stuff in real time. Like I'm not a expert hunter, you know, like when I'm asking people these questions, it's so that I can get better at what I'm doing and learn. And like I post those online because like a podcast is an hour and there's a lot of information buried in random spots. I understand that it's hard to listen to all the time, especially as, you know, like I'm putting them out every week. That's a lot of freaking information, a lot of time to catch up if they're like, so I try and put out shorter clips, and it's like, I'm just trying to think of how I could help other people answer these questions, because I'll ask the stupid question. I don't care, because this stuff is confusing. It's hard. I don't care how old you are. If you're 10 or 40 and you're just starting, like this is very difficult stuff to learn. Like it's not like you turn on Call of Duty and you're like, just go buy the nicest gun and you start winning. Like this is, your body is going through a lot. You're cold. You're slogging through water. You're trying to kill stuff that knows the land way better than you. You're nervous, you know, like you're probably didn't eat breakfast because we're running late and you drank an energy drink and you're freaking out. Like that's been my experience, like barely awake out there in 10-degree water, you know, like, you know, so I'm trying to teach people stuff, but it is hard in this area. There's a lot of YouTube videos about hunting ducks, but hunting wood ducks and timber in Louisiana isn't really helping me out up here in the marshes of Northwest Ohio.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's like when I was first starting to like, when YouTube started to become like a big thing. So like when I first was watching YouTube, it was more of like the entertainment value of it, whatever. But like, I wasn't watching like duck hunting stuff on there. What I originally started making the videos was I was making like, my next door neighbor at my old house had this like journal of like when it was dated. It had like the conditions, what he harvested, blah, blah, blah. And he had been out of duck hunting for a very long time. And I'm like, I don't think I would be able to like, it was like a really nice leather bound notebook. And like, you could tell like he carried it with him and he took care of it. I don't know that I would be able to take care of, you know, a notebook the same way. So I was like, well, I could start putting like the stuff in my phone. But then I kind of got into, I've always been into like filming stuff. Like in college, I filmed stuff. When I was growing up, I filmed stuff. So I just started taking the camera that I had and I'm like, well, I'll just start filming it. And then I heard about GoPros and I got a GoPro and I filmed everything with a GoPro. So then I cut up these little videos on my phone and I posted them to YouTube because I didn't know where else to put them. Like I didn't know where to save them. So I just posted them there, and I had honestly forgotten that people could watch it. And I'm like, so then one day I go back and I look at it and like one of them had like 1,500 views and I'm like, for what? And so then I realized like there's comments on it like, well, we never see videos of that stuff around here. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe this could be something. And it's not anything big by any means, but like it catches traction. Like there's a lot of bigger YouTubers that I'm friends with now because they got interested in diver hunting. And so like I talk to them pretty regularly, you know, and like it's made its rounds, but it just hasn't like blown up by any means, which is fine. It's just, it's a niche thing. Lake Erie diver hunting is very niche. So like it's cool. It shows a lot about the area. It's helped a lot of my friends that are guides because they will say like, they'll see that I'm friends with a guide on Facebook or whatever. And then they'll ask them like, oh, do you take people out on diver hunts? And so like it's helped, you know, in a way. And I don't see that it's like hindered any spots that I hunt. I don't think a lot of people, unless they know me personally, then they already know where I hunt and they've probably hunted the same spots. So like it hasn't gotten to a point where like it's ruined anything for me, but I've helped a lot of people learn diver hunting, learn different ways to hunt. And then I've also been able to like give the safety speech of like,
Yeah.
don't go out on the lake and be a moron, because I've done it and I've had a lot of close calls and I've learned from it. And so if I'm able to give that information to somebody else and help them, it makes me feel better about what I'm doing.
When it's like, I always am saying, if I do fishing stuff, it's like, dude, if you're going to go out in your kayak, just wear a life jacket. People are like, don't be a pussy, dude. I'm like, you can die on the water, like, especially in the river. Like, dude, it's I know people think the Maumee is like this gentle flow. Like, dude,
no.
In spots, it's 2 foot deep. And if you flip over and knock yourself unconscious, you will die.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Well, and like during the river run, like it's 4 foot. And it's flying. Like I've been on the rapids in my waders and sliding. And that's when I decided, like, I'm not going back without a boat. So then I went back with a boat and I was like, oh, it still isn't what I want it to be. But But to your point, like anything is dangerous, especially like with the kayak. Like I knew a guy that I went to college with, and last year he flipped his kayak and he died. And it's like, he was out just pleasure kayaking. And it's like, he wasn't even that far offshore. And it's like, you need to be aware of the conditions. I mean, there's apps everywhere that are telling you. And if you get out there and you see whitecaps, turn around. Like, it's just not worth it.
I 100% agree, man. Well, on a closing note, this is my favorite question, because I like to kill this stuff and eat it. Like, that's the whole point at the end of the day, is I want to eat it. I'm not just out there just killing stuff for fun. Like, it is, the challenge is fun, but I do like to eat it. So what's the best duck? You can go diver, you can go puddle duck, whatever, either or and. But like, what's your favorite duck to eat? Because I mean, I like to eat them all. I've eaten a lot of weird stuff that people said you shouldn't eat. I want to go out and catch all these weird fish in Lake Erie that nobody will eat, like the sheep's head. People said they're pretty good. So I want to eat them. And everybody's like, that's disgusting. So I'm on a mission to just eat everything and see what it's like. So ducks, what's your spiel? What's the best ones? All right. Well, I'll go out and catch some, man.
So blackened wood duck is my number one. Pepper, butter on a cast iron. It is unbelievable. Like, you cook it until it's blackened and then you eat it. It's just like, oh, it's phenomenal. I have taken, last year I was doing a lot of like mallard stir fry, like teriyaki stir fry. That was really good. And I was cooking the mallard, like I'd marinate it like a steak, and then I just cook it, same way on the grill. Then just like the go-to jerky. I have like 7 or 8 pounds downstairs right now, ready to get ground up tomorrow. And I'm going to make, as much jerky as I possibly can for the season, but with goose and duck mixed in a little bit. And, it's, the one thing that I want to do this year that I started doing last year was my same buddy that I grew up with that does the catfishing. He's like real big into like different game recipes and stuff like that. Is keeping the drumsticks. So I kept drumsticks last year, but I only ended up with like, I don't know, a dozen of them or something. And so I have them all in one bag, and I want to keep another, like as many as I can this year. And they're just really difficult to like cut out. So like the joints and stuff are really difficult to get out. But I want to try that this year and do like some kind of drumstick recipe with the ducks and geese. So if I have number one though, it's that black and wood duck, dude. It's so good.
Well, I have a list of ducks that I want to shoot, and the wood duck is number one, just because I want to get one and get it mounted, because they're just the most beautiful ducks, man. Like, they are just awesome ducks. I obviously eat them. Yeah, I have only had.
I got some right here. It's a picture of them.
All right. I mean, I've shot one duck. Like, that was my whole season. I got one.
Oh, okay.
And so like, I don't have a lot of experience, but I mean, I'm definitely going to be out there this year. And I'll tell you, have you ever done any upland hunting? Like, I went up with some guys last year to up in northern Michigan.
Up here.
Yeah, there we go. Dude, I love upland hunting, and it's just like, woodcock tastes awesome. We had like a wild game feast up there.
You guys had good woodcock? Because I've heard the total opposite.
That's what I'm saying. Is like everybody tells me, oh, I wouldn't eat this duck or I wouldn't eat that. Like we shot merganser and we ate it because we shot it, and me and my buddy, everybody at camp, we ate it. And my buddy was like, everybody at camp was like, I'm not touching that.
Good for you.
And
I've done it. I have no issues. Like, I mean, it's not the greatest, but like I'll make dog treats out of it, and I'll mix it into like jerky and stuff. Because I don't really like to waste stuff. So like, yeah. I'll either keep mergs as like training birds, or like I'll mix it in with something else. But yeah,
that's the thing is like, you know, if I'm going to eat at home, if I'm going to go, if I'm going to buy a steak, I'm going to buy like a good steak to eat. But like if I were to buy a cheap steak, I wouldn't compare it to a New York strip, but like it doesn't suck. It's just not as good as like a big fatty New York strip. I was like, that's how I felt about the merganser. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't like go out of my way to like target merganser, but it's not like I wouldn't throw it in the garbage either. It would just cook it differently. And that's a conception I have with a lot of food. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. Like I just think people have a weird phobia of foods before they even try it. Because we were eating everything up there. We were just shooting stuff, eating it, and it was awesome. Grouse, like just everything was. Woodcock was my favorite of the whole weekend. It was like astounding.
I've never shot one, so
they're so good. It was like it tasted like medium rare steak, dude. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, like I've talked to people who like actually target them quite a bit, and they're like, hey, you know, they're kind of rough, and I'm like, well, whatever you say. I mean,
I would disagree with them. We'll have to get you up there and figure it out if we can. It's awesome. So anyway, before we wrap up here, we'll probably talk till midnight if we let ourselves, because we're both podcasters and that's what we do. We can reconvene at another time because there's nobody in Northwest Ohio I know that does this kind of stuff, and we can talk more about all the other stuff. But where can people find your YouTube channel, your podcast? You got a lot of cool content on there. It's awesome to see a fellow Northwest Ohioan talking about the outdoors, because we get a bad rap, man. So where can people find you and all that cool stuff?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's also cool to see somebody else up here doing the same style of stuff, and it was really awesome to be on here. YouTube's Too Many Hobbies. The podcast is on the YouTube channel and also on any of the audio podcasting platforms. Instagram, the one that I use the most for Instagram is Brian Ellithorpe Media. I take a lot of pictures of ducks, geese, dogs, whatever the case is. And then you can add me on Facebook, Brian Ellithorpe, and we do have a Too Many Hobbies fan page. So anybody that wants to come in there and talk to my friends, people who follow the page, and they're all pretty good people, have some good conversation. So feel free to jump in there. And I think that's about all I got.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. Anybody, I would recommend go check out your podcast and learn about duck hunting. That's kind of your main gig over there, which is cool because I'm all over the damn place with my podcast. So if you want specific Northwest Ohio, which most of my listeners are, they don't already know about your podcast, which I don't know how I didn't know about your podcast. We literally live like a half hour or 45 minutes apart. And
I know, it's crazy.
There's only 2 of us as far as I know. There might be like 10 more that we don't know about still. If you are,
I've only seen 2 other ones that are on like the east side of the state, but other than that, it's like, they're not very big. It's just kind of people screwing around. But interview-wise, I think it's just you and me.
Well, we're here to stay. So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate it very much, and we'll probably be fishing together and hunting together at some point. So,
perfect. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast. If you're getting anything out of this, if you're learning something, if it's helped you in any way, go down in the link below and buy me a coffee. Throw me $1. Throw me $2. We greatly appreciate it. Just using it to keep this ship afloat. So thank you very much.